thank you so much for having us at the Crypto Olympics.
Not quite the Olympics, but the Bitcoin Conference 2024. Could Bitcoin really reach 49 million per coin? Let's hear from the experts and politicians who believe it can. And let's find out what went down at the Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville. A Bitcoin event can't get bigger than this. It was a huge 3 days in Nashville with a lot of prominent guests and speakers from the Hawk Tour Girl, Russell Brand, Edward Snowden, Michael fucking Saylor, to a whole bunch of US politicians and lawmakers. In total, there were 6 US lawmakers that spoke and 2 presidential candidates with RFK Jr. and of course the highly anticipated Donald Trump. So the first day warmed us up pretty well with Robert Michnick, the head of digital assets at Blackrock, who gave us a bit of insight to how Blackrock foresees a bullish future for Bitcoin.
Well, I guess to the first part, before we'll come back to volatility, it's been quite remarkable the degree to which these ETF holders so far have been of a very long-term buy and hold nature, right? If you think about since January, there have been some pretty big pullbacks in Bitcoin. IBIT has had 1 day of negative flows in 6.5 months, right? And in fact, on a lot of the down days, we've seen net buying, where our investor base is so-called buying the dip. Of course, that'll change over time. I'm sure we'll see in the second half, or in the years to come, we'll see lots more negative flow days. That's just natural, right? But pretty striking how consistent and long-term the investor base has been.
On day 2, Bitcoin guru and superstar Michael Saylor took the stage to deliver a keynote. And we all know he knows how to hype his fellow Bitcoiners. Not only did he re-emphasize Bitcoin as a strategic asset,
when you compare them to all the other assets that you can use for capital preservation, you can see they're off the scale. Everything else is living in the domain of 30, 40, 50 years, and you're in the domain of 1,000 to 100,000 years. It's a breakthrough in capital preservation, but it makes it a revolution in economics.
But he also gave us his mind-blowing price predictions. Check it out.
Here's my macro Bitcoin forecast. It's 21 years. Goes out to the year 2045. What do I think will happen? Well, I've got a bear case and a bull case, but what I think will happen is that 55% ARR goes to 50%, 45, 40, 35, 30, 25, 20. It's between 50 and 20. It'll gradually decelerate till it's growing about twice as fast as the S&P index. And at that rate, Bitcoin's $13 million a coin in the year 2045. 13 million. It could be a 3 million bear case. It could be a 49 million bull case. But what is Bitcoin? 7% of the world's assets then. What about the rest of the assets? Well, I actually think that AIs and technology are going to revolutionize tech. We had no companies worth $1 trillion. Then we had a bunch of $1 trillion companies. You're going to see more because you're going to see companies with 100,000 AIs and no employees, and they're going to do the work of companies that used to have 100,000 employees. You're going to see mega corps develop, shipping robots and self-driving cars, and a company that gives a personal physician to 1 billion people without any doctors on the payroll. So clearly, equity is going to grow fast. Gold's going to get demonetized. Land will be less monetized. But look, here's the future in 2045. Doesn't look that revolutionary. It looks like today. It's just that Bitcoin is visible on the chart to you. When Bitcoin is visible, that's going to be the base case.
While there were many US politicians and lawmakers in the building, no one other than Edward Snowden had an opinion on this as well.
We are winning, ladies and gentlemen. But we haven't won. And so we have to make sure that we don't get cocky. And I think, unfortunately, that's about the end of the fun part of this talk. But I think this year, plenty of people will be talking about the happy stuff. So you won't need me for that. I noticed that we have a lot more political representation this year, which is a wonderful, remarkable thing. we've reached the fight, the stage of the fight where, they go, oh, then they fight us. But it's actually, then they try to get us to love them. And what I want to say on that briefly, because I don't want to make this talk about all the politics there, is cast a vote, but don't join a cult. They are not our tribe. They are not your personality. They have their own interests, their own values, their own things they're chasing. Try to get what you need from them, but don't give yourself to them, even if you have to vote for them.
And speaking of politicians, there was another high-profile person who took the stage on day 2. Presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was very concrete about what his plans were when he does get selected, and it was jaw-dropping.
After all I've learned, I intend, as President of the United States, to sign an executive order on day 1, directing the Department of Justice and the U.S. Marshals to transfer the approximately 200,000 Bitcoin held by the U.S. government to the United States Treasury, where it will be held as a strategic asset. On day 1 as president, I will sign another executive order directing the U.S. Treasury to purchase 550 Bitcoin daily until the U.S. has built a reserve of at least 4 million Bitcoins. And a position of dominance that no other country will be able to usurp. Our nation holds approximately 19% of global gold reserves. This policy will give us about the same proportion of total Bitcoin. The cascading impact from these actions will eventually move Bitcoin to a valuation of hundreds of trillions of dollars. On day 1 as president, I will sign also an executive order directing the IRS to issue public guidelines that all transactions between Bitcoin and the US dollar are unreportable transactions.
Day 3 promised to be a banger, with Donald J. Trump taking the stage. But before we get to the probably most anticipated guest of the conference, let's go to the senator of the state Wyoming, Cynthia Lummis. She already had a few things to say on day 2, together with Tim Scott, senator of South Carolina, but nearly disappointed because she didn't announce any new Bitcoin reserve legislation. And then this happened on day 3.
This Bitcoin reserve that we're going to create will start with the 210,000 Bitcoin that President Trump just mentioned and pull it into a reserve stored in geographically diverse vaults. And that's only the beginning. Over 5 years, the United States will assemble 1 million Bitcoin, 5% of the world's supply.
The comedian Dave Smith was also there and part of a panel during the conference and shared his powerful view on things.
Like why I love Bitcoin and why I think it's so, like the potential is so limitless is because like the more you learn about money and government control of money, you realize that that is the whole game. Everything else flows from that. Every evil thing that government does is only because they control the money supply. Like, take an evil thing that government does, and I'll explain how it's because they control the money supply, you know? Like, I mean, just think about, like, okay, we fought, like, a catastrophic 20-year war in Afghanistan that literally killed hundreds of thousands of people, cost trillions of dollars, and thousands of our bravest young boys died, and then tens of thousands committed suicide in the wake of the war, right? Well, just like imagine if they couldn't print the money for that war. Right. Imagine if they had to tax the American people every month for the war in Afghanistan. You think that thing would have lasted 20 years?
No way.
You'd have been lucky to get it through a year.
Yeah.
Before the people would have demanded a result. Like, what are you doing here? I mean, just imagine trying to do the lockdowns of 2020 if they couldn't just print trillions of dollars and pass them out. The people wouldn't have taken it. They would have been like, no, we're going back to work. We're not doing this. It's only because they control the money that they can get away with tyranny.
Yeah.
And listen, like, personally, like when I came up as a child of the Ron Paul presidential campaigns. Like, that's how I got interested in all of this stuff. And Ron Paul always talk about the gold standard at the time. And don't get me wrong, I think a gold standard would be much better than what we have right now. The problem is that historically, what do nations do when they're gold standard and they need to fight a war? Just suspend the gold standard. So the difference that what Bitcoin brings is the decentralization. If you were truly on a Bitcoin standard, someone in Washington couldn't just say, we're going off Bitcoin standard now. That's the power that Bitcoin has, that you can actually have a chance at separating money in the state. And that is the most important thing in the world today.
Now, let's get to the grande finale, ex-president and presidential candidate Donald J. Trump. At first, everyone was waiting for him, and then he took his time because apparently there was a special guest who was supposed to attend, but in the end, that guest didn't show up, and after about an hour delay, Trump took the stage all for himself, and he surely didn't disappoint. This could be a whole highlight reel for itself, so let's break it down. First, he celebrated Bitcoin's growth and potential, and then he hinted at its potential future.
Think of that. It's already bigger than ExxonMobil. Soon it will be surpassing the entire market cap of silver. It's not bad. How about gold? How about gold? Let's go gold. And one day it probably will overtake gold, but based on the way it's going now, it could very well be a possibility. There's never been anything like it, and I don't think you've ever seen anything like it. And most people have no idea what the hell it is. You know that, right?
Then he came with a big statement and plan for the future of the US.
This afternoon, I'm laying out my plan to ensure that the United States will be the crypto capital of the planet and the Bitcoin superpower of the world, and we'll get it done. If crypto is going to define the future, I want to be mined, minted, and made in the USA. It's going to be. It's not going to be made anywhere else. And if Bitcoin is going to the moon, as we say, it's going to the moon, I want America to be the nation that leads the way. And that's what's going to happen.
And now let's get into something more entertaining, namely Gary Gensler. We all know him. Let's see what Donald Trump had to say about him.
On day one, I will fire Gary Gensler and appoint a new SEC chairman. Was that unpopular? Well, I didn't know he was that unpopular. Let me say it again. On day one, I will fire Gary Gensler. Whoa. I will appoint a new SEC chairman who believes America should build the future, not block the future, which is what they're doing.
Okay, let's stick to governmental topics. We know many countries are exploring central bank digital currencies, also known as CBDCs. And while there was already some movement in the US, Donald Trump added his 2 cents.
Next, I will immediately order the Treasury Department and other federal agencies to cease and desist all steps necessary, because you know, there's a thing going on in your industry. They want to move the creation of a central bank digital currency. It's over. Forget it. CBDC. There will never be a CBDC while I'm president of the United States.
But how does a potential crypto economy look like under Trump?
A lot of things change. As president, I will immediately shut down Operation Choke Point 2.0. They want to choke you. They want to choke you out of business. We're not going to let that happen. And no longer will your government sit by and watch as Bitcoin jobs and businesses flee to other countries because America's laws are too unclear and too tough and too angry and too stiff. We're going to go back to the old days when we were a nation that was building, not a nation that was eating itself alive from within. As part of our effort to provide regulatory clarity, we will create a framework to enable the safe and responsible expansion of stable coins. Do you know what a stable coin is? Does anybody know? Please raise your hand. Allowing us to extend the dominance of the US dollar to new frontiers all around the world. America will be richer, the world will be better, and there will be billions and billions of people brought into crypto economy and storing their savings in Bitcoin.
But how does he see Bitcoin as a strategic asset for the US?
Never sell your Bitcoin. And so, as the final part of my plan today, I am announcing that if I am elected, it will be the policy of my administration, United States of America, to keep 100% of all the Bitcoin the U.S. government currently holds or acquires into the future. We'll keep 100%. I hope you do well, please. This will serve in effect as the core of the strategic national Bitcoin stockpile.
Do you remember Ross Ulbricht, the founder of Silk Road, who was sentenced to life in prison without parole for operating a platform that primarily got utilized by criminals? Well, many people think the sentence is way too harsh, considering he didn't do the crimes himself and basically created a marketplace that focused on privacy and free trade. Guess what? Trump brought him up as well.
Today I repeat my pledge to commute the sentence of Ross Ulbricht to a sentence of time served. It's enough.
So, what are your thoughts on this year's Bitcoin conference? What was your personal highlight? Let us know in the comments down below, and if this video gave you a good summary, do us a favor and make sure to give us a like and make sure to hit that subscribe button and also the notification bell down below for more updates from this crypto space like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.